Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming. I'm Dell and this is Kerbal Space Program, and this is the passenger station on the Mun Science Station, orbiting Mun at the moment, and we've got some new visitors arrived just to come up for a little visit to some of our guys up here. So this is some of the visiting tourists to our area. We've got Bill here, who is their pilot, who brought them up to this area. And you've also got Dorla, who's in the cupola, who's in command, the commander at the moment of the space station. And you've got our two scientists, who I can't remember who their names are now, but the two scientists working in the lab. They doesn't look too happy about it. Like, don't, you know, you're a scientist, do your sciencey stuff. You know, how does the other one? She doesn't look too happy either, but they're science. So, you know, what can you do? The tourists are happy. Look at them. They're as happy as anything. So, yes, we've had a little expansion of our science station orbiting the Mun here. It's grown a little bit. What we've had come in is some tankers. One of the tankers had a docking ring as such attached to it, so we managed to get a 4-point docking system onto it, as well as acting as a fuel refueling point for any docking craft, and an additional tanker as well. Now, hopefully I'll be able to cut in some sequences. Something that it does take at the moment is, for our two docking systems, sorry, our two tankers, is the launching vehicle, just to get one of these tanks up, because the other tank, these are made up of two 800-litre tanks, and one of about half to 3/4 of one of them is required to get into orbit and to rendezvous with the station. The other part of the system is then able to be used for anybody that's coming in. But to get just this amount of fuel from Kerbal up all the way to this point in space takes quite a large rocket to be launched from Kerbal. So efficiency wise, not great at all. That's a known quantity. The more important bit, in some ways, is the cost of this. It's going to be costing quite a bit of credits every time I launch a vessel. Which means that, you know, obviously this is going to just add up over time to be, yeah, quite expensive. But with this, what we have to do at this time to get everything up and running as quickly as we can. The other vessel that we have at the moment is our Mun Taxi. Now, our Mun Taxi again takes a lot to launch from Kerbal to get back up here into space. It's quite a large rocket that I've been working on. Some new design using the larger system of fuel tanks where possible, and engines to get the maximum thrust where possible for the fuel that we are requiring. And it's got up here. It's made up from a basic I think it's Mark II, Mark III, capsule, which has 3 passengers, and it brought up into space a pilot and a couple of tourists. Now, I'm not sure if the tourist part worked, but we'll go through that when we're back in on Kerbal. But it's come back up. It's got some parachutes. We're going to have to test its landing ability. It's okay on land because of the landing legs, but in water, because of the way that water physics, I've had a few problems when I've landed. Originally I had the hitchhiker pod attached to it to try and bring more Kerbals into space. the problem I had was that when it lands in water, everything seems to get damaged or gets impacted at the same time, which results in the whole thing exploding. I think this is a known problem with water physics in Kerbal. Hey ho, can't have everything. That's one of those little problems we have to go through. But it's okay when landing on land if it lands with legs, etc. like that. So anyway, we've got that as our little return vehicle taxi between Kerbal and the space station. So 3 at a time, and being it's in a capsule, it's got a good landing. So with the number of parachutes, even if the base unit does explode a little bit, we've got enough resistance in the capsule for the returning people to survive, hopefully. Okay, so talking about fuel, obviously that means if we go now, we're going to leave the space station and we're going to go back to Kerbal to plan our next step, based on the fact of fuel is a problem. So let's just go back to the space station. Sorry, the space center. Well, I just accelerated time to get a nice morning view. I dislike coming to the space center every time it's dark. It seems every time lately I've come here, it's been dark. Okay, with the fuel being an issue, there's a couple of things that we can do to alleviate it, and it's all about science really. Number one is the heavy rocketry. Get some bigger rockets so it's more efficient to get us into space. So that's going to be important for our first part of getting off of Kerbal. In the first part is some heavy rocketry. So we're looking at what else we need for our next sections. The tri-coupler, I'm having a few issues with some of our staging of rockets. I'm sure other people get it. We know when a system detaches, it ends up knocking off one of the thrusters, etc. from below, which I'm sure is not an uncommon problem. Found a few ways around it, but occasionally it becomes a little bit of an issue. The other side I want to look at is mining. Obviously, if we can produce our fuel on the Mun for the moment, eventually we'll go over to Minmus, but initially on the Mun, that would be of great benefit, and that's going to be a priority for our system. So to do that, we're going to need this converter, which and the associated mining, so that we can use these to basically mine for various materials on the surface of Mun and convert it into fuel and then ship it up to the station. Although, you know, the cost in Delta V to get from Mun to back up to the station is going to be in the order of about 800 Delta V. That's still better than shipping it all the way from Kerbal, which at the moment is taking about 6,000 Delta V, so it's a 10 times difference. Now, to get this, it means you can see there's quite a bit of science we're going to need. We're going to need to come up to the advanced landing, into the field science, into the science tech, and then into this area here. So we've got quite a bit of area we need to sort of head into, which is going to be a shed load of science, basically. So science is what we need. Now I'm looking at two ways we're going to need science, and we're going to have to use the Mun, because that's our main area we are currently orbiting. And what I would like to look at is using the ScanSat stock system and using our space station, which is going around the Mun, going all over all the different biomes as it's travelling over. It's not quite in a polar orbit, but it's close enough, I think, to be able to get into all the different biomes, but we'll look into that. I want to create an addition which we will ship up to the station, which basically will scan the surface of the Mun. And the scanning is for two reasons. One, to find good landing sites for our terrain, and nice flat landing sites. Had a big had problems, to be frankly honest, on landing on the Mun. Picking a flat, not getting a flat site means you've got to make your lander quite wide, unless you're lucky and get a nice very flat surface or a bit of luck. So finding some flat surfaces with some surface scanning would be good. Yeah, I could go to the website and see, download that, but it's better to do it in game. I want to scan the Mun to find it for myself. The other side will be ore scanning. So we have at the moment, we have the M700 survey scanner. Now, because we have got, I've installed StockScansat, it means we can use this to do various scanning. Even though it's a stock, it's not, we don't need to use add-on parts. It's just adding on an ability, an extra function. So it's not changing an internal process. It is just adding an additional function to that we could find normally, you know, out of the game, etc. So it's quite good. It's interesting. I think it's a benefit. It's not really game changing enough, and it's not like I'm adding new parts, so I quite like the idea of this StockScansat, where I can just extends the versatility and gives you something that you don't normally have in the game. So it's not changing it, it's adding, which is good. Anyway, so we're going to use this to do our resources and terrain scanning. Eventually we can go up to this high res narrowband one, which gives us a little bit better scanning ability. We'll also put, for all the different sensors we have currently on our system, just looking at any other sensors that would be we've got. I think we've got quite a few sensors at this moment. There's a few we're possibly missing. We'll have to get later on. Just checking at what else there is. No, I can't see anything else. So the ones we have, all right. So we then put them all onto the space station. So as the space station is going around, it can be, as it goes over the different biomes, it's scanning the area, and it will be basically doing lots of science with goo containers, temperatures, and a junior science lab as these go around over the different biomes over the Mun. So that will collect us quite a lot of science as we're going through the system, which will be great. We can then process that in the lab on the science station. Now I'm hoping that, but I'm not going to guarantee it, I'm hoping that because we're on a space station which has part of a science lab, we will be able to replenish the science lab, or restore it, so it can be scanned and get more data to scan to put back into the archive. Hopefully that makes sense. So it's basically can regenerate itself straight away, so it can get another reading, and keep doing that. Fill up the science bay, then we'll process and science the shit out of it, basically. Excuse my language, but we will see how much science we can get from the lab, from everything we go around the biomes, and then we will transmit it back to Kerbal. Now, just on a quick bit on this science, and a decision I made to extend the this game a little bit for myself, is I've decided that if an experiment or data is put through the science, I'll transmit it using the comms, but I mostly won't bring it back again as well. There is a little, not a bug, but a workaround, or I'm trying to think. It's not an exploit, it's just the way the game mechanics. You can take a bit of science, put it in multiple labs, and basically have infinite amount of science. I don't like that. I don't like that. So I'm going to make it a little bit more difficult for myself by saying, okay, we bring something into the lab, we process it there, and it gets transmitted back. That's what would happen. There's a few things that might be brought back in general, but generally, if we've taken it out of an experiment, unless the whole experiment kit gets returned back, we will just process it in the lab. Once it's processed, send it back, not try and get extra science by bringing it back. Yeah, it's just the way I'm going to do it. It's a little rule I'm going to set myself. So okay, let's go, and I'm going to build quickly a little satellite, and I will using it to basically, it's a satellite, but it's going to basically go on and connect onto the station. So I'll be back in a bit once I have a working sort of process which I think will work. And welcome back. And this is the little station scan system which I think will be good to put onto our satellite. Sorry, as a satellite to go onto our station. Oh, my words, are a terrible morning. Anyway, so we've got the M700, which should give us some good scanning system. I've put a whole load of electric panel, photoelectric panels on this. So, because we need some solar energy to power this whilst it's in operation, because it takes quite a bit of power to run. In our cargo bay, we have a whole load of batteries and some mono propellant, because we're going to need to dock, and also we might as well just use it to have some storage and take up some RCS fuel while we're about it, effectively. Sort of do two jobs at once. Just remember that I need to put an RCS on here just to give us some control. That should be fine. Excellent. Right, so also we have the instruments available to us at the moment. We've got our goo container, we have the temperature and the barometer, and we have the Science Junior pod, which we will be able to deploy, take some readings, and then send them back to the lab. I've also put a Mark 1 lander can. That's for whichever scientist happens to be working on the scanning system. We'll put them in the lander. That way, if they do need to go and reset. Now I'm hoping, as I say, I'm hoping that I can reset these because they are part of the station. Once we have collected the data, we can collect it, send it to the lab, then reset them for the next biome. But if not, we've got our lander nice and close so that they can go up the various ladders and go and reset the goo container and the science without having to do a complicated EVA from somewhere else in the ship. So hopefully we can do it in one pass. Also, we could possibly take a Kerbal with us. Have we got any scientists available? We don't have any scientists available actually, so but we could take someone up to Kermin, up to our science station in this as well, and it just adds a little bit of extra capacity to the station anyway. So now we do have to get this into space, so we're going to need two sections on this. One is a Kerbal orbit, and then a docking and Kermin station. Let's start again. We're going to need a Kerbal orbit, and we're going to need a Mun intercept, and then a station docking. So we don't need a bit of delta V on this. So let me just have a look through this, and back in a minute once I have sorted out a rocket to move this fairly light 3-ton section up into space. So back in a minute. And welcome back. And been having a few little crashes recently. Possibly one of the mods I've installed sometimes doesn't like saving things, which is one reason, another reason why having too many mods can be detrimental. Try and keep it standard where I can. Anyway, what we have here is we've got our station science module on the top, and we've got a relatively simple 3 stages. Semi-4, but 3 stages in general. We've got some solid boosters just to help lift us off the initial pad, just to get us going. And then I'm using at the moment, because we don't have the large rocketry, I'm using something like a Reliant with lots of these thuds, just to get the maximum thrust, to make sure our thrust to weight ratio is high. What this allows me to do, or I've found, is use a single stack of fuel tanks, the larger, more efficient fuel tanks, with multiple engines, rather than having to work a multi-engine system at the bottom. Which I could also do, but I found this is quite efficient. It might be more efficient actually to have, say, 3 reliance on engines with fuel pipes, is another idea I was going to possibly look at, but this has been working okay until we get the larger engine, which would just be more efficient to fit on the bottom anyway. So that's our second stage, which will get us most of the way up, hopefully into the atmosphere. Get us accelerating quite nicely towards orbit. Then we've got our third, which is going to be our orbital stage. So this third stage has got enough thrust there to get us into space and into orbit around Kerbal, and hopefully a little bit left to start the initial Mun orbit intercept. And then we've got the final stage, which is going to be our continuation onto the Mun, our deorbit, or shall we say our intercept, our low Mun orbit, and then intercept the station. Now, I've given that a little bit more delta V than required. A lot more delta V than required, actually. Just possibly a little bit on the safety conscious side here. Now, we can't dock with this fuel, so anything that's left will be wasted. So I might jettison it before. Now, because of the angle of the station, it does take a little bit more delta V to fully capture. So rather than being the estimated sort of 1100, 1200, I've added an extra 100 or so delta V just in case we've got to make some extra movements. Now I'd prefer 200 delta V, so I'd like our total normally going to the Mun, it's going to be around 9, 10, 11, about 1200 delta V to intercept and then go into orbit. It's about 1200. Now I like to add an extra 200 because of that inclined orbit. So we're just shy of that, so 1333, we should be alright, but if we get an extra boost from this initial stage, we should be there in plenty of time. Okay, let's go and launch this, and you will see some new graphics, hopefully, that one of our new modules has put in. And welcome to the launch pad of our science module for the station, and we should be just doing a fairly standard launch. A couple of things before I start, couple of little mod changes. You see these particle effects near the engines? That was a Cool Rockets mod that I've put in just for visual enhancement. I've also put one in called Hot Rockets, which changes the exhaust and gives us a bit of more smoke at launch. I was getting some frame rate issues. I've moved the time up a little bit because I don't know if it was specifically the morning, but when I was first trying to launch this straight from the bay, the hangar, the frame rates were dropping significantly. We're back up to a good high rate now. It was morning, so I'm wondering whether it was something to do with one of the visual mods having a problem with morning shadows or sunlight, etc. But anyway, we are ready to rock and roll and get up for a launch into a standard orbit. So I have pulled over Tito. When we came up, it said there was a passenger waiting, so we might as well use this, our little crew hatch here, to get Tito up to the station and back again to start our tourism mod. Because one thing is, we've got lots of tourists in our inventory and no actual contracts, because all of the previous tourist contracts disappeared, which is a bit annoying. So anyway, I will see you in orbit, ready for the next stage. And we're now ready for our burn towards the Mun intercept. So I created a maneuver node, 90 degrees from the current position, which should mean with 90 degrees we encounter. That's the intention. And by giving plenty of, I think that's anti-normal, but bringing our inclination down initially for the intercept, you can see we've already got a nice angle coming in, and we've got an intercept close to the station's orbit, so we could set our next, assuming we get this first one correct, we could set our next maneuver node to be at this point here, or very close to it. Find a point which is very close to that section, and then circularize our orbit and see if we can get close to getting a capture. We're already getting intercepts on that particular orbit. Needs to be adjusted a little bit, but the basis is there to start getting a capture and intercept with the station. Just needs a little bit of work, and that will reduce the amount of delta V required in total for this intercept compared to a standard going into a equatorial and then to trying to change it all once we're actually at the Mun. If we can do little changes far away to get us close to the same orbit, it's going to be beneficial in the end. Now we'll leave that there just for the moment as an idea of where our next one, but it's going to all depend on how accurate we are with our first burn of 870. So we're close to that, and we've got some fuel left in the existing rockets, so let me get up to that point and do that burn for the intercept. So I'll quickly fast forward it to that point. So the Mun is just coming over the horizon, and just as a point, I've set my target to be the station, not Mun, because that's who we're going for eventually. I'm just trying to get us lined up as close as I can to our maneuver node, which is let's give ourselves a little bit of RCS just to aid getting us on alignment for this first burn. It's going to be important to stay aligned as much as we can on this first burn to get as close as we can to that point. I don't think we'll have enough fuel totally in this final this orbital stage we've got here. We had a better orbital burn from Kerbal in the first place, but I don't think it's enough to generate what we require. Yeah, sorry, enough fuel left to fully get us back on target. So we will have to use the second stage. So I'll go a little bit early, allowing for the second stage is nowhere near as powerful and would be about a minute's worth of burning, I think. So yeah, I think we'll go at about 1 minute 2. No, yeah, about 1 minute 2. I think we'll give the full burn with what we've got left fuel, and then we'll see where we are at that point. Well, surprisingly, we did very well with that orbital burn. Although it seems to be, we seem to be shite, so I need to have a look at what's happened with that maneuver, because it doesn't seem to have been as successful as I expected. So let me just sort out getting that capture. I think I cut it about 30 meters a second early on that, so let's just add that back in again, and our satellite is now on the way to the Mun. So just needed a slight little burn. We've got a nice capture now. We do have to make sure we go at this particular point here. Don't want to miss that, because that would be bad. So it means we're getting a nice capture and can basically come back into a Mun orbit fairly close to our station target and get a good intercept. Hopefully we'll see how much. Let's just plan that out and just see how much that's gonna require, delta V. Okay, so we have our next maneuver node planned. The primary is to get our one of our apoapsis and periapsis the same, and our inclination about the same as well, close to it. We'll do final little adjustments when we're actually on the, actually in orbit, to get our actual inclination as close as we can to the same, to 0. At the moment it's just mucking around with little bits, but it's not making enough of a difference. It's too close to make those large changes. One advantage I've noticed, the further away you can make your changes, the sooner you know what changes you might need to make. So I'll know whether I've got to make a change in my mid-burn on the way there to make a change, rather than wasting a lot of delta V at the Mun. But you can see, with getting this inclined orbit, it's going to take 480 delta V, whereas normally it's 300 to get to an equatorial. But that would be, if we went to equatorial and then tried to move that, I reckon this would be a couple of hundred more. So burning that delta V early on was well worth it. Okay, I will get to this point here now, and with our little science station, I've turned the lights on as well, just because, or why not? To test it, because we didn't put lights on a lot of the other ships, which is a bit of a pity for pity, really. I should have put some more lighting on our station, and I did forget to do that. But we'll turn it off for the moment, save some battery power, and turn it on when we need to do some science. But I will see you in a bit when we are in preparation, or just about ready to dock with the main station. And we're coming in quite nicely now on the station. Not too fast, a little fast, but not too much. Now we won't be needing the remaining fuel, although there is a lot left, luckily. So we'll jettison that now and just bring us in on RCS. So if we jettison that, we'll go down a bit relative so that we are a bit below it, and then slow down, and we should see that pass overhead. Just slow down a little bit more, so we're coming in at a reasonable speed, and that debris will float up ahead. It'll be sailing around on an orbit close to us if ever we need to. It can't dock with it until we get a grabber, but it will always be there handy as an emergency supply in the future if ever needed. So okay, we're coming in a little bit below it. We're going to go a little bit above. That should be fine there. And we'll just check where our free docking port is, because we're going to go to one of the ones on the docking ring. Let's find where it is relative to us. So okay, we need to go up on that top. Now we'll go to that bottom one, I think, so slightly below that way. Okay, so I'm going to aim ourselves at the point I want to be aiming for, which is just down there. We'll orientate ourselves when we get a little closer. So we'll go down that bottom right hand corner, is our bottom left hand corner, should I say, sorry. Right, we're coming in 1.4 meters a second, which is a nice speed. Not too slow, not too fast, sorry. Took me about 2 extra little adjustments to get to this point, and then just patience. Do plenty of orbits, let yourself get into the right place. Don't burn too much. It's better to wait than overburn and have to recorrect. Lots of little burns I've found gets me there in the end slightly closer and less chance of mishap, shall we say. So that's quite nice now coming in. So we've seen these dockings before, so I'll just bring it in, and hopefully it should be a safe dock. I have to remember I'm going to have to now do a control from here and reverse everything to do this docking. So let's turn around. That's one thing to remember. You have to make sure you control it from the docking port. And we have docked, and the ScanSat is now on the vehicle, so which is excellent. One quick little thing: when we were docking in there, we if you noticed, if I put it in there, remember to target the port on the station to adjust your nav ball. Otherwise, it's always going to be trying to target the other side of your docking ring. So we've now got this on board. Now, one of the things we do is we'll move. We'll just give. I'll then move one of our Tito into the cupola, but I think it may actually be full. So let's go have a quick check using manifest. So if let's just check I'm in the right thing. If I go in here and we go crew, we can see how many people. So we've already got 4 people actually in the crew cupola already. Actually, we've now got 2 Titos. So what I'm going to do is take from this lander can and put him ready to go back for a return journey later on, so we can get the points, etc., for him returning back to base later on. So he's ready to return. Haven't got to worry about any fuel. The spare fuel in here we can use later on. Just checking out our fuel situation. We've got positive. Oh, actually, we haven't got very good electricity supply at this second. Let's just turn the lights off. We'll turn off stabilization. I think it's the mobile lab. The mobile lab currently is active. If we go and have a look there, they're still researching. We've got just 0.55 at the moment. We haven't really done much. We'll just transmit that, and we'll stop the research on that for the moment. got 18 to do, but not much. At the moment, we've got very little sitting there. So, we need to gain some science for them to start processing. So, let's deploy the scanner. We're getting a positive electrical flow now. You can see all the electrical coming back into the system quite nicely now, I think. Everything is charging up. Well, first of all, let's perform an orbital survey. Oh no, that's a stable orbit. Okay, let's go for start radar scan and multispectral scan. That's taking a fair bit of our electricity, so we'll stop the multispectral. Okay, we'll see how that goes. Now let's go to our scanner view and see how that is faring. Now it could be we might have to just realign the station a little bit to basically get those better solar panels in operation. Let's see if they are actually sun exposure 0. Yes, blocked by service base. So let's try and reorientate the ship a little bit. Just twist it. Turn off the stabilization. We've got to do this gently, so we give it a little twist with the RCS. There we go. Now we'll stabilize it back there. Turn the RCS back on again. Sun exposure points. We're getting some sun exposure now. Looks like we need more solar panels, to be honest, on here now. It's going to be one of our primaries. Let's see if we can get a bit more exposure on here. We haven't got the auto-seeking ones at this time. Okay, we've got a very positive electrical flow now. So let's just let everything stabilize just there at that position. So we can see from our little window we are starting to get some data, and let's just try turning on the other multispectral scan now as well. We've still got positive electrical flow, which is good. We're on a -6. Let's try enabling the here as well. Start researching, see if that's... Yeah, we're still getting a -1, 2, so we're actually still recharging with that actually. So just getting that nice array into the sun just made the difference. But you notice how wobbly it was. So we're starting to get a little bit of terrain and biome data, and that will gather up over time, hopefully. So excellent, good start. We can now start looking at gathering data. Well, almost had a bad moment there where I activated one of the jet thrusters by accident, and luckily no bigger problem, but that was a very close one. So something I need to look out for, definitely. That's upset the orbit of the ship totally, which is not something I wanted to happen. And we're going to have to stabilize that again with some RCS, but certainly not something to be very aware of, for want of a better word. If you're if you don't shut down your engines, you're liable to accidentally activate them, like I did. I just pressed the Z button by accident. which was a bit of a problem. So everything just went wrong, basically, which is not good at all. But we're stabilising again. But we lost a lot of our original angle and attitude that I like to keep, which is annoying. So almost a disaster, but managed to stabilise it, luckily. I like to keep the vessel aligned with this what should we call it, the rim edge, so that we're pointing towards Kerbal. We've got a lot of movement at the moment. Let's just hope that it can sort itself out. But yeah, that was very close to a disaster there. Okay, I'm to stop now before I cause any more big problems by accident. So, until next time, leave any comments below about all the bits I did wrong, all the disasters that I'm about to put on myself, unfortunately, it looks like. But until next time, keep playing, leave any hints about all the bits and pieces about the game, but above all, have fun.